Hello everyone and welcome to Stretford Paddock. I am Alex and I am going to be answering the questions that you guys put in over on our Instagram this week in this Instagram Q&A. First question pretty much sums up a few questions. We are looking at Jadon Sancho. So many people asking, is the deal done? How much is he going to cost? Is he the right man? Look, Jadon Sancho is obviously very, very high up on Manchester United's list of players this summer, if not the top man. Looking in the region of 120 million, and I think that is well worth the money. World-class player, and as you've seen this season, you know, we've been much better at scoring goals. You've seen Rashford step up, get 19 goals in a short period of time. You've got Anthony Martial scored 16 goals. Players like Bruno Fernandes coming in, looking a bit of quality. You've got Mason Greenwood even scoring 12 goals in very few starts. But what we have lacked all season is someone that's world-class to be on that right-hand side, someone that stretches the game that way. You know, Marcus Rashford, fantastic on the left-hand side this season. You then have Anthony Martial, that when he does drift out, he always drifts out to the left-hand side. Paul Pogba, when he plays, he drifts out to the left-hand side. And even Dan James, for as much of the time he's played on the right-hand side, you can argue that his best performances, his best individual performances where he scored goals, he's actually started on the left-hand side. So we need someone, we need world-class on that right-hand side. And whilst Mason Greenwood has done a great job out there in a few games as well, I think long-term we want Mason Greenwood through the middle. So right-hand side forward is the main target, I think, for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And for me, Jadon Sancho is that man. All the rumours coming out, it kind of looks like Jadon Sancho will be a Manchester United player. Whether this coronavirus affects it or not, I don't know. I think a lot of that will be down to how limited the transfer window is going to be. You know, you've seen United struggle to get transfers done in the short periods of time they've had. You know, it took the whole month of January to get Bruno Fernandes through. What I'd like to see is maybe some pre-agreement, whether this is whilst the games are still being played, that Jadon Sancho gets done. You know, you've seen United used to do that in the past. You've seen clubs do that in the past, in recent times, that just aren't Manchester United. So hopefully that gets done, and Jadon Sancho is our new number 7 for next year. Okay, question number 2. Someone's asked, who is your favourite non-United player of the Premier League era? I'm not going to go to a rival. You know, there's been some quality players. I like Thierry Henry was world class, but I wouldn't say he's one of my favourite players. One of my favourite players, though, from the smaller clubs, from Bolton, JJ Okocha. What a player he was. He was unbelievable, taking the mick. You'll see some of the clips of him flicking the balls over Arsenal players' heads. In a time when Bolton weren't the best team in the world, but he was just quality, and still he was taking the mick every weekend. He was unbelievable. Always on Soccer AM showboats. Quality player. Okay, next question. Provided there is a tour, which obviously is very much up in the air now, which youth players will be involved? Yeah, providing there's a tour, there's a lot of people not really thinking about that. You know, that a lot of these clubs make a lot of money, may do a lot of global outreach on their tours, and it's usually over the summer months. So what they decide to do, whether they decide to finish this season as quick as they can and postpone the start of next season, will they still give two months off? Will there be time to go elsewhere? If there is, do you know, I think people forget that a lot of the players featuring are youth players for Manchester United. You know, the players like Brandon Williams and then also like James Garner that's featured in the team this year. I think all those players will come back into it and still be the younger players in the squad. I don't think that we'll see too many of the really young players. Maybe, I mean, I went to the youth game against Leeds, and Ted Mengi is an unbelievable centre-half. Quality player. So much better than everyone around him. I'd love to see him involved, whether at a centre-half, whether that is someone that is going to step up and play first-team football, but I think he'd probably make it onto the tour. And on top of that, maybe Hannibal Medrick. You know, he's come in and he's been a really, really good player. You've seen the bit of quality. Maybe he'll be the one that gets risked on the tour. And a lot of that probably depends on Angel Gomez, you know, whether he's still around. If Angel Gomez is still there, probably similar mould to Hannibal. Will he take up that spot if Angel Gomez is moved on in the summer or it doesn't sign? Maybe Hannibal takes that spot of that creative midfielder that wants to try and push from the youth ranks up into the first team. Moving on from that, the next question is, how many signings do you see happening this summer? This is a strange one. Again, I think a lot of it is going to depend on how long the transfer window is. You know, a lot of the plan for Manchester United is based on the transfer window running from from the start of July all the way up till September, giving it 2-3 months of dealings, that might not be the case. You know, they may try and rush this through where the end of the season is end of July and all they get is August, you know, on 1 month. So it's almost like a January style transfer window where they only get to do things very quickly. I think also it depends on Paul Pogba. You know, I think that you saw last season, you know, we spent on Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Dan James and then Bruno Fernandes in the January. We only really spent just over 100 million. And if Jadon Sancho's on the cards and if he's going to cost 120 million, I don't see us spending too much above that if we don't move players on. And that main one is Paul Pogba. If Paul Pogba stays, you know, I think we'll probably only get one more signing in. I think we'll only get maybe 2 signings on top, maybe one more signing on top of Jadon Sancho. I think we need more. I think we need more to compete, but realistically, I think what Ollie wants to do is kind of keep this unit together. You know, you've kind of seen that with, again, we're always doing it because they're doing very well. They've done very well this season, Liverpool, but you've seen with them that just keeping players around and keeping that system going. You know, that midfield of Henderson and Wijnaldum was a useful midfield, but isn't world class in any sense of the word. But just keeping them together, keeping them playing constantly, keeping that system together, they've found a way of playing. And I think that's the same with probably players like McTominay and Fred. You know, if we can keep them together, keep them playing consistently, they can form a very good partnership. Same with Lindelof and Maguire. You know, Harry Maguire obviously is a standout player, but if you keep Lindelof in there, you keep him playing, I don't think we need too many players, and I think it's more down to the fact of we want to keep the squad together, keep the pairings getting together. You know, keeping that Rashford Martial link up, getting Brandon Williams in that left hand side. Maybe it's Luke Shaw on that left hand side. Maybe when Sancho comes in, him and Wan-Bissaka get some kind of relationship. It's all about developing the relationships across the pitch. You know, Liverpool, again, looking at their front three, they don't have too much strength in depth, but the way that front three works well together, the way that they know what they're doing now together, I think that's the key. You know, if we can get our front three up to that level, you know, if we got a front three of Rashford, Martial and Sancho and get them playing week in, week out, keep them fit, I think that's probably the most important thing. Okay, next question. Can you see Grealish and Bruno playing together in the same 11? Definitely can see these two playing together in the 11, but what I probably don't see is Grealish, Bruno and Paul Pogba being in the same 11. I think Grealish is the plan. I think Grealish, Bruno is kind of the replacement for Paul Pogba together. So if Paul Pogba stays, do I see Grealish not coming in? No, I think maybe we still try and get some strength in depth, but I do think that, you know, playing them three together would be a tough ask. Maybe Grealish has to play out wide or something along them lines. You know, I think what Ollie kind of sees is maybe a McTominay or Matic alongside Bruno in the holding role, and then Grealish ahead of them. But I don't see the three of them. I don't see Bruno, Grealish and Pogba all being in the same 11. Without that, might be Grealish pushing out wide. That's the only way I can see it. But I don't see them in a midfield three together. Definitely not. Next question is Tony Marshall out wide or best through the middle? I think this is an odd one because I think Tony Marshall's probably had some of the best games for United out wide on the left hand side. But you know, I think that through the middle, you know, he gets on the ball a bit more and things like that. But I don't know. I think Ollie wants sort of almost a combined player of like Ighalo and Marshall. I think that's why he was looking at Haaland. You know, someone that's comfortable on the ball, someone that can link up play, someone that can drive at them. But it's also just an out-and-out number 9 and just goes and poaches goals. You know, someone stands in between the 6-yard box, someone that's doing what Ighalo's done in the couple of games he's played. He's just there. He's just there to win headers. He's there to pick up scraps. You know, that's what Martial doesn't quite do. Whether he's better out wide or through the middle, you know, I think in certain games, I think in the games against the big teams when we're playing counter-attacking football, and or even against the smaller teams where we can play along the floor, I think that Martial is better through the middle. But sometimes I think he does show sparks. You saw, I mean, the obvious clip of when he came on against Liverpool that first time when he picks up the ball on the left hand side and drives. That's what he's good at. I think that's what he needs to do, and also maybe just get a bit more selfish. You know, so I saw a clip this week of Wayne Rooney, and you know, he talked a lot about how when Ronaldo left, he had to take the responsibility of getting goals, and I think that's kind of what Martial has to do now, where he needs to not worry about his all-round performance and just become a greedy striker. You know, Wayne Rooney talked about how he used to drop out left, he used to accommodate where Cristiano Ronaldo was. And when he plays number 9, he never felt like he played really well. I think that's what Martial kind of has to do. You know, he needs to have more bad games that result in goals. You know, I think you've seen that a little bit more since Bruno's come in, where, you know, with the service behind him, where he's just nicking a goal, and that's his game. And that's kind of what I want to see from Anthony Martial. So hopefully that's the change he makes. You know, he needs to get a bit greedy with his positioning, maybe doing a lot, not dropping as deep, and maybe not drifting as wide as much, maybe just staying through the middle and seeing what he can do from there. I think, again, like I mentioned before, I think that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is looking for in a striker. I think that's what I was looking for in Haaland, was someone that can do a bit of both. But at the minute, I like Martial, I like Ighalo as the second option almost. And I think a lot of it depends on, you know, how that system kind of develops. I think that until we complete that 3, until you get that right-hand-sided player to add the extra element of what they can do, I don't really think you can really judge Anthony Martial. So I'd like to see him play through the middle. I'd like him to see him stick to that position for as long as he can. I don't want him drifting out wide as much as he does, and I don't want to see him starting out there. I want to see him playing as a number 9 and seeing what he can do from there. Okay, next is a couple of questions about what coronavirus is going to do in terms of transfer fees, transfer values, club values and things like that. Been a couple of people asking about that, and the honest truth is nobody will know. Nobody really knows, but I've seen a couple of articles this week that have said that already, you know, there's less money in football. Straight away, you know, there's less revenue coming in, so that probably means that there's less money to spend on players. You know, there's players already having to take pay cuts and things like that. So I think the long-term thing is transfer values will go down. I think that just because of how it's gone. Now, straight away people are going to go, oh, that means we're going to get Jadon Sancho cheaper. I don't think that's quite the case, because I think one of the things that might happen is that, like I said, that transfer window may get shorter, may become a month. People are going to panic by a bit more, and teams like Dortmund that don't really need the money are going to say, well, if you want our man, you're going to have to spend the money. And they're going to ask for that 120 million, that £100 million for Jadon Sancho. I don't see him coming any cheaper. I think for teams like Aston Villa, for example, though, if you look at Jack Grealish, that might be something where it comes a bit cheaper. You know, Aston Villa might get that second bite at the stay in the Premier League. You know, they may not relegate people this season. They may get void, they may get start again, which means they may get a bit more consistency with the money they get coming in, which might mean that they can say, look, we're going to have time to invest in players. We're going to have a little bit more time in the Premier League. We've spent this season. We're kind of getting used to all this. We can get rid of Jack Grealish at a normal price. I think that, you know, all these things can affect it. A lot of people asking about like Man United's club value. I don't think Man United are going to struggle with all this. I think, look, they've got enough media behind them. I think they'll still sell shirts and things like that. I don't think they're going to struggle at the start of this. And the other thing is that as soon as this is all over, there's going to be a huge spike in things. You know, when football gets back going again, everyone's going to be watching, everyone's going to be buying shirts, everyone's going to be buying merchandise again. So I think that Manchester United will come out of this just okay. They'll be fine. Nothing's going to affect their transfer, the value of the club. But it does, I think, and people saying, well, does this mean that the Glazers are going to be able to sell because they see it as a business that can't be sustained throughout this? Do you know that I think every business is like that right now. It's not just football. So Manchester United is still going to make money for the Glazers and for everyone else. I don't see this being the thing that pushes them over the edge. So, you know, coronavirus and transfers, I don't know how it's going to go. A lot of that will be down to what they decide the transfer window is going to be, I think. But don't be surprised that over 3 or 4 years that see the drop in transfer prices. Okay, next question is on our striking options. We have a question here saying, will Griezmann, Kane be a good buy considering we have Martial, Greenwood and maybe Ighalo? Yeah, I'm not sure about Griezmann and Kane. I think especially when we are looking at spending so much money on Jadon Sancho, and I think that it's a given. I think those two would definitely be another 100 million, 120 million pound plus signing. And I don't think, whilst everyone says, you know, we are the richest club in the world, I don't think United are going to be spending over the 250 million pound mark on transfers next summer, especially not with players going out. So no, I'm not too sure. I like Harry Kane. I think he's a quality player, and I think that with the right service around him, I think he scored a lot of goals for Manchester United. And do you know what? I think if Lukaku didn't come in, I think he'd have probably been that number 9 that we went for. But I don't think right now. I think that there's more important areas of the team to focus on. So I don't see Kane. Griezmann, I'm not sure about. Griezmann, you know, he's gone to Barcelona and it's not worked really. He's not really clicked. I think Barcelona spent a lot of money in trying to prepare for the disappearing of Lionel Messi in the next couple of years. So he's not really worked. I don't think he's worth spending over 100 million on. So yeah, I think that obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants a number 9. He wants someone that goes kind of either instead of Martial or another option to Martial. I think that's why Haaland was on the table. He wants someone that can drop deep and do the Martial job of driving at plays and having that kind of quality. But I think he also wants someone that's going to be through the middle, in between the posts, scoring goals. That's his number 1 job. And I think that's what kind of, like I said before, that's what Martial needs to focus on a little bit more, rather than, you know, kind of the fancy side of the game and getting on the ball as often. So I think with Ighalo coming in, I think he might just stick with the 2. I think that obviously Greenwood's going to maybe play a bit more, and I think having Sancho there will give Greenwood more chance to play as a number 9 rather than out on the right hand side. He's got a bit of physicality, he's got a little bulking up to do, I think, to be as the number 9. So, but yeah, I think that he might just risk it at the minute, might just wait a little bit, you know, give Martial another season as a number 9, have Ighalo as a backup, have Greenwood coming in there, and then maybe long term, maybe in a couple of years, maybe that's where Haaland comes in again, because I don't see Kane or Griezmann as the option right now. I think it's too much money. Now, if Kane became available at a cheaper price for some reason, I think if Tottenham just decided we need to get rid of this guy, we're going to invest elsewhere, if we can get him for less than he's probably worth, I think you have to go for him. I think if they kind of offer him to us. But that's not how Tottenham work. You know, you saw what Levy did with the Gareth Bale scenario. He wanted a world record fee, and he'd probably want a British transfer fee for Harry Kane. So I think it'd be £100 million plus. I don't think that's what we need to spend our money on right now. Another question is 2 seasons enough to get us back to the top? Depends what you kind of mean as back to the top. I think in the next 2 seasons, if the transfer's right, I definitely think we could be competing for the league. But back to how we were before, I don't think we'll ever get to that stage. I think that was kind of an anomaly in history where you'll have a team dominate for 20 years now. I don't think that'll happen again. I think the money coming into so many of the top teams, I think it'll go through cycles a bit more now. I think that, you know, City have had their time, Liverpool have had a season, they've not really 2 seasons, not really competed too often. City have had their time, they'll keep spending money, but I think, you know, United will come back into it, Chelsea will spend money again, you know, Chelsea will probably compete again, and then it depends on whether other teams do it. But I don't see United being a dominant force over a 10-year period again. But I think if you get the right signings in, if you get, you know, if you get Sancho in, you've then got Sancho, Martial, Greenwood, Rashford, Dan James. That's a good front line of players that can be there for a long time. You know, Bruno's not the oldest player. You've got McTominay in there. You know, you've got your back line. You know, you've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you've got Harry Maguire, you've got Brandon Williams. You've got a lot of young players in there. I mean, Harry Maguire's not the youngest, but you know, he could be there for another 5 or 6 years, 7 years. You've got a consistent team there. You've got Dean Henderson coming through. You know, you've got a team that could do pretty well for a long period of time. Now, Liverpool also have a young team, so they will. And I think their big thing is how well they do the transfer window over the next 2 years, you know, because they've kind of gone under the radar, picking up these players and doing very well. And now they're going to have to spend the money to kind of improve on them players. City will obviously spend money. Chelsea will obviously spend money. So I think United have got a young squad to compete. Whether we can dominate or not, I don't know. But I think that what Ollie's tried to do is you need to get back to a philosophy. So whether a new manager comes in, a new player's coming in, new owners, whatever, the same thing's going to happen. The same players are going to come in, the same style of players, and that's kind of what Fergie had. You know, Fergie had his plan over 10, 20 years. It wasn't just a 3-4 year plan and then it moved on. I think City have done well with that in terms of their director of football, where, you know, a lot of Pellegrini signings have done well under Guardiola. Is that a coincidence, or is that the fact that they were preparing for Guardiola coming in? They had a guy from Barcelona who knew the players that Pep liked. He knew the style of players. He knew the De Bruyne and Sterling and Fernandinho and you know, players like that. that he kind of picked up and went, you're going to do well for the next manager coming in. You're not just going to do well right now. That's what Ollie's doing. Whoever comes in is going to pick up a much better football team than what Ollie picked up on. So, whether it takes us 2 seasons, I think it could take us a bit longer. But I think, I think we can do very well for a long, long period of time with this squad. Next question we have is on the goalkeeper front. If David De Gea, how much is he worth in the transfer market? And he phrased it in terms of, because Chelsea got scammed for Kepa. Kepa got signed for 70 million, and that was always going to be the case. They had to spend big after Courtois left. De Gea can go for any fee, 70, 80 million, but it's whether he actually goes for that, because his wages are ridiculous. So I think De Gea might not get sold for a long, long time, because who's going to buy him? Madrid don't want him now. They've got Courtois. I don't think they'd see De Gea as the next step from Courtois. They'd probably go for someone younger. And then the probably only other option is PSG. And does De Gea go to PSG? I don't know. Do they see that they need to spend all that money on a goalkeeper? I'm not too sure. So who knows? De Gea could go for, like I said, 70, 80 million would be easy. Goalkeeper fees are obviously a little bit less than the rest of the world, the rest of the players. But, De Gea, whether I don't see him going to Madrid now, and I don't see PSG picking up. So I think his fee's above the 70, 80 million pound mark, but I don't really see him leaving, to be honest, now, mainly due to the wages that he's on. Next question is, do you see Axel stepping up next season? Axel Tuanzebe played a lot of games at the start of the season, was coming in and out, and there was talk of him taking over Lindelof as that partner to Harry Maguire. And I think he's a quality player. I think there's been something there that hasn't been reported on. I don't think there's been anything that's come out, because he's kind of been out for a long time without a proper reason, has he? He's not really been said it's been a thigh injury or a calf injury, calf strain, or something. Not been something. He's not hurt his knee. Not come out and said what the injury is, but he's kind of been out for a long time. So I'm not too sure what's going on there. I'd like to see him play more next season, and I think the big thing, it depends on what Ollie kind of does. Does he stick or twist kind of thing, in terms of, does he go for it with a centre half? If the option for Koulibaly is there, I see him going for it. If he can get him at a reasonable price, if it's not the 90, 100 million that was bandied around in the summer, I think he'll go for it. I mean, personally, I'd like to see the guys develop. I like Lindelof, I like Eric Bailly, and I like Tuanzebe. I'd like to see them rotated in and given the chance to prove themselves as a top centre half. But the thing is, if Ollie has the option to potentially make the best centre half pair in the world, now people are going to say Van Dijk, but Van Dijk hasn't got, Koulibaly and Maguire together is a scary, scary proposition. So I think if Ollie has that option and can get it at a reasonable price, I think he kind of has to go for it. So we'll see how that goes, but I'd like to see Tuanzebe get a lot more time next season. I think he needs to stay fit. I think that's the main thing. But yeah, I think he'll definitely be pushing Lindelof and Eric Bailly for that spot alongside Harry Maguire. So the next question is about our midfield. With Pogba back, what is our strongest midfield selection? And that's a strange one in terms of, I don't think anyone can argue that Bruno and Pogba need to be on the same pitch in our strongest midfield. They're unbelievable players, and are definitely our best 2 players in the squad. So who goes as that third man? Fred and McTominay have done unbelievably well this season, stepped up, especially with the injuries to Pogba. Matic at the start of the season didn't really do too much, but those 2 players have stepped up and developed quite a good partnership at one stage of the season, and we're doing really well. My thing is, I think they need each other, kind of. I think they do well as a pair, or I think that maybe with the Bruno, but I just don't see a Fred, Bruno and Pogba 3. I don't think there's enough defensive work rate there. I don't think there's much stability. I like McTominay in there, but I think our best midfield 3 probably has Matic in there alongside Bruno and Pogba. I think just him being able to hold that pivot, him being the solo person there, I think he's probably the strongest one in that. And I think you saw last season when Ollie first came in and he had Pogba and Herrera in front of Nemanja Matic. I think that's our strongest 3. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how they do fit in, if they do get to play together this season at all. I think that Pogba needs to work his way back into the team. Whilst I do say that that's our strongest team, He's not like it was before. It's not like we don't need to rush him back anymore. You know, when we came back for the Arsenal game, I think it was, or the Rochdale game, we were really struggling for midfield options, and we were really struggling for creativity. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think with Bruno in there, we don't need to rush him back. You know, give him the time, let him bed and way back in, and make him work for it. Make him work to get himself ahead of Fred. Make himself work to get ahead of McTominay, and he needs to show that he's committed to the cause to kind of get in there, because that midfield was working really well. The Matic, Fred and Bruno that played in the City game, unbelievable. So we'll see what happens when Paul Pogba gets back. If we see Pogba and Bruno on the pitch, I think unbelievable quality, but that third man, for me, it's got to be Nemanja Matic. Next question is kind of a summary of a bit of all the transfers you've talked about, and if we sign Sancho, Grealish and Koulibaly and keep Paul Pogba, are we good enough to win the league? Definitely is the answer to that. I think there's definitely enough quality there. I think the one thing though that you need to win the league, there's always a bit of a luck element, and a lot of that luck, unless you've got a ridiculously stacked squad, and I think City have shown how they've done it, you need a bit of luck in terms of injuries. You know, Liverpool have done well by keeping that front three, two full-backs and their centre-half, and getting the goalkeeper back fit pretty quickly. You know, that has made their team, you know, they've not had too many big injuries. They've had injuries here and there, but that front three stays pretty much the same. If United can get that front three firing of Rashford, Martial and Sancho, and then you have Bruno in there and Pogba, you know, that front five or whatever you want to call it, if they can keep that fit, will always score goals, and that will challenge. Now the next question is, can you keep the rest of the squad fit? Can you keep Harry Maguire fit and keep that consistency at the back four? Because, I mean, you go back to Leicester in the league. Leicester, that was an unbelievable achievement, but one of the things that happened that season was that entire 11 pretty much stayed fit the entire season. They didn't have to make too many changes, didn't have too many cup competitions to play in, and that'll make a big difference as well. You know, if we sign them players but the season gets voided or we miss out on top four, you've not seen many teams compete whilst playing in the Europa League. And up until the last two seasons, you've not really seen a team win the league and do well in the Champions League either. So I think United have to be in the Champions League. I think not just for the fact that it's good for the club to be in the Champions League and it's the best competition. Yeah, I think doing Thursdays and Sundays, you don't see teams competing in the Premier League doing that. So I think United need to be in the Champions League in order to do that. I don't think that in the Europa League, it's tough to compete for the league. So we'll see how that goes. But with that squad, definitely, there's enough quality there for Manchester United to be competing for the Premier League. Next question is, who's Manchester United's Player of the Year? Now, I'm not going to answer that one because tomorrow, me and Joe have got a video coming out that's kind of a little bit of a mid-season review, and in that we talk about our Player of the Year. So make sure you check that out tomorrow. So you've asked a couple of questions that aren't really football based. First question is, have you ever had Tesco vodka? I have, probably in my younger time. I can't really remember it. It's probably because I was drinking Tesco vodka, but if you need to ask that, go and ask Adam Patterson, go and tweet him or something like that. He will know about Tesco vodka. He's our vodka connoisseur in the office. Next question on this kind of front is, a whole year's worth of lasagna or United win 2 Premier Leagues and a UEFA Champions League? I'm gonna go with United win the Premier League and Champions League. I like lasagna, but I don't like lasagna that much. I couldn't have it every day. It'd drive me mad. The next question is, how many people work at Paddock? You know, well, you see all the people, all the presenters, people you probably don't see. You've obviously heard of Cameron. He's the one who's always at fault for the audio issues. So if you ever see anything like that, make sure you do #SackCam. Other people you don't really see Callum Skaman. He's one of our video editors. So top guy. And also the brains behind the operation, Mitz. If you're in Steve's Patreon, you know about Mitz, but make sure you check him out as well. That's pretty much the crew that works at Stretford Paddock. And then final football question is, what is your all-time Manchester United 11? It's the usual pub question. Everyone kind of asks who's that, so I've done this a load of times, and this is mine. We've got Peter Schmeichel in goal, best keeper. I think he just tips over Van der Sar. Right back, Gary Neville, quality. Then pairing at the back, Yapstam misses out. I've got to go for Vidic and Rio. I think that pairing together was unbelievable. My left back is Dennis Irwin though. Dennis Irwin just missed the consistency, missed a 7 out of 10, missed a 8 out of 10. Quality, used to score free kicks, used to score penalties, just beats Patrice Evra there. Midfield 3 or midfield 4, I'm not quite sure how they'd all fit, but I'm sure they'd find a way, because you've got David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane and Ryan Giggs. Don't think there'll ever be a better midfield 4 than that. And my 2 strikers, or 3 forwards, I put Giggs up there, would be Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney. I've gone for players that I've seen, and in my lifetime I've not really gone any before that. There's arguments obviously for Van Nistelrooy, but I just think that Rooney, you can't not have him in your team. I think he was underrated in the end. United's top goal scorer, and Cristiano Ronaldo, unbelievable player. And people may be saying, how's David Beckham got in there? David Beckham's my hero, so that was always be the case. Cheers guys for watching. I've been Alex. Thank you very much for putting all your questions in. If you don't already follow us on Instagram, go over to Stretford Paddock, that's without the O. We're the same on Twitter and Facebook as well. Make sure to give us a follow. Let us know if you want to do any more of these Q&A style questions, videos. We'll get them done for you. Make sure you check us out. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. See you next time.